Welcome. My name is Andrew, and this is the Who Dat Discussion, a New Orleans Saints podcast where we talk about all Saints news, opinions, and reactions. So before we get into some Saints news and a preview of the Saints and the Browns, I just want to say quickly, please, if you haven't already and you enjoy this podcast, please follow us on Twitter at the Who Dat Dis, on Instagram at Who Dat Discussion, on Podomatic at the Who Dat Discussion, and also subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube at the Who Dat Discussion. On there, please leave a comment, leave a review. It's just really helpful because we're still growing this podcast. But with all that said, I think it's ready to get into some Saints news. And, there's only really one big set of news, and it came out yesterday, and it's that the Saints re-signed Jermon Bushrod and cut O-lineman Michael Ola. So the Saints actually cut Bushrod just a couple of days before the game against the Bucs last week, but they re-signed him this week after just, only a couple days he wasn't on the team. He actually watched the game, so he kind of knows, where this team's at, what happened and everything. I mean, obviously I think it's a good veteran move, as I felt like it was when they signed him in the first place back in the free agency period. But, I think he got cut for one of two reasons, and now he's back on. So one, once you cut a player and they bring him back on, a lot of the salaries for veteran players like Bushrod, that, it was guaranteed, and now it's not guaranteed because he got cut and joined the team. So that means his salary is not guaranteed anymore if you want to cut him down the stretch if he got hurt, something like that. Or a second reason that he had some family, we don't know if it's family issues, but issues off the field, we should say, and he missed a couple of days of practice against the Bucs, and, the Saints probably felt it was better just to cut him, bring a guy who knows the playbook, knows the game plan, what they're doing. It's not like Bushrod didn't know the playbook, but he didn't know the game plan going into the Bucs, so better have some fresh body out there than a guy, that's a veteran and missed a week of practice. So I feel like, it was a good move there, but, you bring him back, now he's ready for the Browns game plan, and he's ready to go just in case someone gets hurt. But I feel like the offensive line depth is really good, and I think we saw that against the Bucs because, Pete was out, Andrews Pete was out, so Josh Laberius came in, and he played amazing. So, I mean, you just look at it, especially the interior where, the Bucs have a great interior with Gerald McCoy and players like that. Their whole defensive line, they got better this year, with Jason Pierre-Paul and players like that. They got more veterans, and they got better, and we stopped them completely. So that was obviously a huge plus, to a game that didn't end up well for us. Just our whole, offensive line depth as a whole, it's just, it's really solid. And then, when you're in these pass situations where you have to pass, and, when they're bringing the blitz and your offensive line's holding that's the reason the Saints can come back in game. That's why they almost came back in this game. The offensive line held completely. And this is why, the offensive line is a big part of why the Saints are, a very good offense. Always been top 5 under Breeze and Peyton. This is a very, big reason. Obviously, they're not going to get the love like Breeze does in the skill position players, but they're a huge integral part to why this team, succeeds and why the offense succeeds. And I think, Bushrod's a really good veteran addition, and obviously Laberius and stuff like that. I feel like it's just really good for that line. And, I feel like I'd rather have Bushrod than Michael Ola. Nothing against Michael Ola, but I'd rather have the veteran presence there. And, we got it, back. So I think it was just because he missed the week of practice. Now bring him on. He's got a full week of practice, knows the game plan. So just in case he needs to come in, I feel like he could. And also the Saints decided to keep running back Mike Gillislee and, not bring up Boston Scott like a lot of people wanted them to do. It seems like they're going to keep Gillislee, give him another shot, let him learn the offense a little more, which I felt like it was going to take him a week anyways. But, the fumble was just, you can't have that happen. So, I mean, you got to come on. I would have cut him, if I was in Sean Payton's position, because I think Boston Scott's just the better running back. Not just because of the age and stuff like that, the versatility. Gillislee doesn't really catch the ball very well. Scott does. Scott returns kicks. Gillislee doesn't. So I think all the things make Scott a better player. But, they decided to keep Gillislee probably as now just not even like a third down back, maybe a third every other down back, because I think Kamara is going to get, most of the carries. I think he'll probably get, about 80% of the carries, maybe even more of that, because, we kind of need him here. Gillislee is just, he's a complete drop-off. To me, he's like a much worse version of Ingram, because number one, he's very slow. He doesn't really hit the gaps really good, doesn't really hit the, the holes really good. So I think that's a huge problem with him. And in our offense, maybe he can get a yard if needed, 3rd and 1, then you put him in. That's kind of like a fullback. I feel like we have Zach Line. He could do the same thing, and he doesn't fumble. So I feel like, you look at that, I don't really see Gillislee's part on this offense. But, the offense was very, successful with him in the offense. Even the little part he had, they were successful. He did a 5-yard run. But, he just wasn't, he wasn't, integral part by any means. And I think that he wasn't a good replacement of Ingram. At least give a young guy a shot. Maybe, Boston Scott comes up and be somewhat like Ingram. Or at least him and Williams could be somewhat like Ingram. But right now, Gillislee's just not cutting it. And also, in our third set of news, We're going to talk about the injury report for the Saints. So this is going to be Thursday's injury report. We'll see Friday's injury report, on Friday. So, this podcast will already be out and published before, the next set of injury report come out. So this is Thursday's, and hopefully it gets better from here, not worse. But Ted Ginn's Thursday practice, he went from not practicing Wednesday to now being limited practicing. Same with Mike Thomas. He actually went not limited but full. He went to did not practice to full practice. Tyler Davidson did not practice both days. He's still in the boot, but they say it's short term. So, at most 1 week. So I think we'll see him next week, if not this week. They'll probably play conservative with him. But, I guess we'll see. I think we have really good depth at D-tackle. So hopefully, if they need to keep him out and don't stretch him, I think it's still early in the season. It's not time to panic yet. And we'll get into that a little later. Also, Andrus Peat and Terron Armstead were limited practice both Wednesday and Thursday, and then, that's all our injury report. We only had 5 guys there. That's really good. It's a good sign. I think the Browns also had 5 or 6. But, just looking at that, I feel like, only one did not practice. That's really big. I think Peat will play this week. I think Armstead will play. Mike Thomas will definitely play. It seems like Ginn will play too. So I think that's just, maybe a Davidson, maybe not. That's only one player out. That's actually, you're in really good shape injury-wise. That's the good news. Especially when you look at, other teams in the NFC South with, Atlanta losing Keanu O'Neal and, Deion Jones, on IR. So, those guys are probably going to be out for the long haul. And, those are 2 integral parts of their defense. That makes their defense much worse. As much as you don't want to see guys get injured, I think that was going to really help, us out in beating them next week, which I think we kind of need to do. And the Panthers lost Olsen again, the same injury from last year. They're going to have this year. So he'll probably come back late in the season like he did last year. But, I don't think it will be a huge problem for us because we're gonna miss Olsen now. Olsen usually, he beats us bad usually, and it'll probably take longer to heal this time because once you break it again, the second time, it's gonna take longer to heal. So hopefully we don't have to play him at all this year. That would be really huge on that part. And also the Bucs lost Vernon Hargraves. He was a good cornerback for them last year, and now he's out on IR. I should say, probably will miss the season. But compared to the rest of the league, I feel like in our division, we're in pretty good shape injury wise. So with all the Saints news, I think it's time to get into the preview of Saints Browns. So, to me, we're going to do a little new format as a preview. First, we're going to do the storylines like we usually do, and then we're going to do a position-by-position, group-by-group preview here. So, first, we're going to start with the storylines, and I think, it's kind of one huge storyline, and I think we'll just talk about that, get right into it, and it's, will the defense bounce back? So, it's obviously our defense gave up 48 points. Everyone in the league knows it. We know it. And it's time for us to step up. You hear all the defensive players. They're making no excuses, which is, very, very good. You look at the 2014 team. They were making excuses. They were saying, it's only one game. This team's not. They're saying there are problems, and we need to fix them. And it seems like they're kind of getting to fixing them. Communication issues, which could be fixed. They feel like it's technique issues. So technique, communication, those things could all be fixed very easily. So if they can do that, I think we could see a quick turnaround here. Will that happen? I don't know. I'm not going to, look, I've been humbled once after last week. I thought we were going to have a really good week defensively, and we just didn't. Obviously, as you know, so I think I predicted them to only give up 21 points or something like that, and they ended up giving up 48. So look, they humbled me the first time. I'm not gonna buy on the Saints defense right away. They're gonna have to show me. As much as Lattimore said, we're fixing everything. Cam Jordan said we're fixing everything. Other players in defensive line. Sheldon Rankin said we're fixing things. So, you just look at those players, and they're saying they're fixing things, and they're saying there's easy fixes. Now they got to show it. You got to go out, and, the Browns are not an offensive juggernaut. They do have great skill position players, but Tyrod Taylor, he's no, Tom Brady, no Drew Brees, no Aaron Rodgers. So they should be able to be pretty successful here. Now, look, this defense can't get any worse than what it was last week. If they give up more than 48 points, that would be a complete debacle. So they're probably going to get better from here. You can't get any worse. But, you really want to cut their points in half. I feel like that's the goal. If we can get them down to 24 points or less, that's a goal. That's a succeeded goal. And that's amazing then. If you're only giving them 24 points, right there, I think that's, look, there's really, you can't say anything else. Hopefully the offense will score more than 30. That's what I think it's going to take to win this game. That's why I think the offense will do that, but I'll get into that a little later. But, the defense, they're going to have to fix every single, part, every single group. The defensive line is going to have to get pressure, which they're going to work on, and it's going to help that the, Browns offensive line gave the most pressures last week, so that's going to, hopefully we'll be able to get to the quarterback a little more there. The linebackers, hopefully we finally ironed out these positions because we have too many linebackers coming in and out. I'm just looking at middle middle linebacker usually have one player play it. It's your trusted player. It's your player that communicates. The Saints had 3 players play it last week. That's not good. You usually want one player. You don't want a rotating middle linebacker spot. So I think this week, just iron it out. Put whoever's at middle linebacker, put him in there. Excuse me. If it's Mario Davis, if it's AJ Klein, which a lot of people want that, or even like Craig Robertson, who I think could come in. You want someone that's vocal and is a leader. To come in and you don't want to play it like. And as much as Anzalone's a great player and everything, he's not very vocal. So having like the middle linebacker spot, I feel like is a mistake there. But, I feel like in that part, I think we could get better with the communication quick. But I don't think the linebackers played that bad. They stopped the tight ends pretty well. I mean, compared to, the wide receivers, they stopped them amazing. But, if this linebacker core can, do what they did last week a little better, improve a little bit, I'd take it. Obviously it wouldn't be the best performance. They didn't do that good against the run. So if you do better against the run and hold your own like they did against the pass, I'd be fine with that. You get better in the run, consistently better. So, you get a little better each week. I feel like we can do that. Look, if we make one huge step forward, I'm not going to say, no to that. Obviously, I'd say yes, but I just don't see it right now in the team. But, you just look at it. I think, if we get better by the run, you stay constant with the pass, I think the linebackers will be fine in this game, especially, if the back end and, defensive line's playing well. And then now, you look at the back end, it's got to get better. It's got to get better right away. Marcus Williams, he missed a ton of coverage mistakes, and he missed a ton of communication mistakes. So he's got to change that right away. It's got to get changed right away. At first, I didn't think he played so bad, but now looking at the tape and everything, he played bad. You just look at it, he missed a lot of coverages. There was no help over the top when there should have been, and that's why the big plays happened. So I think that will get fixed right away. And then, and Marshawn Lattimore said it was technique issues. I hope it's technique issues, and I think, you can correct those pretty easy in a couple weeks or maybe even 1 week, and we'll be right back at it. I think Lattimore really needs to bounce back. To me, if you're not going to put him on, Landry, which I wouldn't put him on Landry, I'd put him on Gordon. I think he would suit better with Josh Gordon. I think he could actually shut down Josh Gordon, even if Gordon's fully healthy. I think he could have a really good game there. And then Crawley, I put up against whoever their third receiver is, and then, have P-Rob, which with Landry, because I think P-Rob will be, Landry, he'll be in the slot, and, P-Rob will probably mirror him in the slot, and I think it would be fine there. If we put that, together, I don't think it would be bad. Now, look, if Landry goes to the outside, which he probably will, you put Lattimore there and see what Lattimore can do against him, because Lattimore's going to have to go against these great receivers, and this, defense is going to be really good when Lattimore can stop and lock down receivers one-on-one. And that's what's going to take, and he's going to have to do it this week. I think that's kind of a big thing. Now, look, I would try to get him away from Landry as much as possible, because Landry's a great receiver, but, to me, Landry doesn't beat you. He can't score. He's not going to score many touchdowns. That's what I'm trying to say. He's going to get his yards, but, you can play a bend, don't break defense, give up field goals, and that's really that. You don't want, Gordon to go deep, or, Antonio Callaway, who they also haven't drafted. You don't want those guys to go deep, score deep touchdowns like last week happened, because that's how quick points score, and that's how you give up 48 points. If you're giving up little underneath plays, even if you're, if they're scoring a lot, it takes them a lot of time, and you're only going to give up, instead of 48 in the same amount of, efficiency, they're going to score 31, and that's a 17-point drop, because, they're not scoring in 1 minute, So I feel like that's, it's a really big thing that they're going to have to do. I feel like strong safeties are going to have to play better. Kirk Coleman played poor, as well as Von Bell. They missed assignments as well, especially on the first play. Von Bell completely missed the assignment when Deshaun Jackson had his first touchdown. Bell was supposed to be there. Crawley passed him off to Bell, and there was no one there. So that's how that touchdown happened. And, just looking at all of them, if you just shore up the communication areas, get technique, physicality's better. And then I think, we can cut, their points in half. So, also our second storyline is, will Kamara get, 80% of the touches or whatever, the majority of the touches? And I'm going to say, yeah, he probably will. I just don't think Sean Payton really trusts Gillislee or Jonathan Williams at this point, unless they have a big league. If they have a big league, I wouldn't see Kamara a lot. I don't think he will. I think he'll see Gillislee. But, I think, until Gillislee learns to handle the football, I don't think Sean Payton will put him in. And look, maybe this week he's shown that he can handle the football and knows the playbook good, and he'll probably get more carries. But, until then, I don't think he'll play much. Jonathan Williams, still really young, and, I feel like he will run the ball more this week. I think more than Gillislee, I feel. But it still is going to take him, he's still young, so, he's going to take some time to develop and stuff like that, and I don't think he's there either. So I feel like, Kamara, it's kind of left to Kamara. And, he played amazing last week. You can't fault Kamara for anything. He played amazing, looked just as good. Actually, I think he actually looked better this year than he did last year, which is, kind of hard to think. But, I feel like that's what happened. And I think you got to lean on him if need be. And I think we're going to need to. So I think, we're going to. So, and then obviously the third storyline, which I think is the biggest, can we avoid a 0-2 start for the fifth straight year? And we're gonna have to here. This is a must-win game, straight down. Second game of the season. People, there are no must-win games in September. Oh yes, there are, because you can't win a division in September, but you could sure lose it. So you have to win this game. You can't lose 2 at home, especially. So we got to win these games. Or this game especially. Go on the road to Atlanta, probably win that one too, and go in 2-1 to the Giants game. But, I feel like this is a must-win. It's got to happen. And, it's against a team that hasn't won on the road in over 2 years. So that's good. That's a good thing. But, they are improved. So that's the bad thing. So, I think we're going to see what happens. But I think, look, it's a must-win. So I think we're going to have to. So now we're going to do a group-by-group breakdown. So first, the groups will be the QBs, skill position players, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, DBs, coaching, and special teams. So first, the QBs, it's going to be Brees versus Tyrod Taylor, and Brees wins this one pretty easily in a landslide. Brees is better basically at everything besides running. I feel like Brees is going to be able to pick apart that defense, probably, maybe not to the extent he picked apart the Bucs defense, but I think he'll be able to put 30 or more on them. He'll be able to pass more than 250 yards, I feel. Probably put up a couple of TDs, or at least TD drives, or if Kamara runs him in, or running, whatever that is, or the end zone package with Taysom Hill. I think that's all fine. But, I don't even think there's a question here. There's not much to talk about. Brees is the much better QB, and I think everyone would agree with that. So skill position players, it's really close. You just look at the skill position players for the Browns. The Browns have surprisingly pretty good skill position players. At running back, they have Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, Nick Chubb, who they drafted in the second round, and then you look at wide receivers. They have Landry, who they got from the Dolphins. Josh Gordon and David Njoku, those players can play. And they also have, Antonio Callaway and Rashad Higgins. They have a very deep group there that, we're going to have to go up against, similar to the Bucs, So this is going to be a huge test for us. And, look, I think they are definitely worse than the Bucs with skill position-wise, but they're still very good. So I think we're going to see what happens here. But, it's a good group. Our group, obviously consists of Kamara, Mike Thomas, Ted Ginn, Cameron Meredith will play this week, Traquan Smith, Benjamin Watson, and then also the running backs, Jonathan Williams and Mike Gillislee. To me, look, we have the star power. Look, if you want to put who's the best player in the skill positions, you list the top 2. It's Kamara and Mike Thomas, those are your best 2. I don't think, the Landry doesn't even hit your top 2 there. And then I think it would go to Landry or Gordon or whatever that may be. I feel like Kamara's, a huge step above Hyde for them, so I think we'd win there. And I feel like, they got 2 good wide receivers to our 1. I think Ted Ginn's going to be really good, though. I feel like Ted Ginn, he played really good last week. I think he's definitely worse than Gordon, but he's solid. I'm going to call it a push because I feel like our running backs are better. And then their wide receivers are better. Tight ends are about equal. Benjamin Watson and Njoku. So I feel like I'm going to call it a push there. And then I think you give a little slight edge to the Saints because we have the star power. I think we have more star power than them. So offensive line, it's definitely the Saints. I think it's actually the contract. I think the Saints were actually the best offensive line last week, and the Cleveland Browns were the worst. They gave up the most pressures. The Saints, they kept the pocket, relatively clean for a lot of passing plays, and when, the Bucs knew the Saints were passing, the pocket was relatively clean. It was easy for Brees to pick them apart. So I feel like, this is a landslide, kind of like the QB. I think this is actually going to be a big reason why I think maybe we'll be able to get more pressure is because, they don't have a good offensive line. They don't have Joe Thomas, because he retired last year. So, there's definitely a drop-off for them there. Offensive line is it's been extremely solid. Even our backups have been extremely solid. So, I think we win the offensive line category. So now on to the defensive line. So, the Saints defensive line consists of, Cam Jordan, Alex Okafor, Marcus Davenport. You can look at the defensive tackles of Sheldon Rankins, Tyler Davidson if he plays, and then also David Onyemata. And then the Cleveland Browns defensive line consists of Myles Garrett, who headlines that defense, Trevon Cooley, Larry Ogunjobi, and then also Anthony Zettel because Emmanuel Ugba is out and doubtful, so it seems like he won't play. So looking at these 2 on paper, the Saints have a much better defensive line. But when you're looking at, the outcome of last week, the Browns play better. So, which side do you want to take? I mean, I would love to take, how, Cam Jordan would be the best player out of those by far. Didn't play like that. Garrett played amazing. So, you just look at, the week 1, you got to say Browns, and then you're looking at just overall on paper, it should be the Saints. So I'm just going to call it a push because it's only week 1. We've only seen a small sample size, so I think a push is a good outcome here. You look at linebackers. The Saints have Manti Te'o, AJ Klein. They also have Demario Davis, who's a captain, and then they have Alex Anzalone, Craig Robertson. So that's like their group of 5. And you look at the linebackers for Cleveland, they're headlined by Jamie Collins Sr., and they're also starting Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey. So I feel like, look, their group played better than ours last week. They only gave up 21, and they played a hard Steelers team. And, we played, maybe a not-so-hard Bucs team, and, we give 48, they only give up 21. They played better, but on paper, I feel like ours is better again. I mean, I think Jamie Collins is probably the best linebacker of all of them, but I feel like, Demario Davis is not far behind, so I feel like, looking at it, I think, again, I feel like it's probably going to be a push, I think, but edge to the Browns here. I'm going to actually call the Browns win here, but I think it's very tight. I can see the Saints, playing really good linebackers, but I'm just going to go that the Browns win this one. And then you look at DBs who, look, I actually love the Browns DBs, looking at Denzel Ward, Jabril Peppers, Darius Randall, and Terrence Mitchell. So, you're looking at, their group compared to ours, who I also, loved coming into the, season as well with, Lattimore, Marcus Williams, Von Bell, Kurt Coleman, Ken Crawley, Patrick Robinson. So you're looking at that, and I feel like, look, again, on paper, we're better. You just look at it, compare them. We have a better, DBs, but they played better week 1. So I'm going to call it another push, just like the defensive line. I feel like the DBs will play better this week. I mean, I guess we'll see. Time will tell. But I feel like, it's going to be close. Again, I think I'm going to call it like a push, but I'm going to call the edge to the Browns because they, they did win the week 1. So I feel like, they should get a little more, based on because they won week 1. So I'm just looking at, though, the coaching. I think it's purely us. I think Sean Payton's a much better coach than Hugh Jackson. And I think it just shows in the records. Sean Payton, who is, a much above 500 record, and, you look at Hugh Jackson, and he is, I think he's 132-1, something like that, 131-1 now. You just look at it, and Sean Payton's just much better. Look at offensive scheming, defensive scheming, which, Payton's not even that good at. He's just much better than Hugh Jackson here, and I don't think it's even a question. Just game planning, everything. I think Sean Payton's going to actually have an amazing game plan. He's actually going to talk his guys up. I think they're having a really productive week of practice, it looks like, with all the interviews, and I think that, we definitely have an edge in coaching. And then special teams, I think the Saints have much better special teams. You just look at their special teams. Number one, their kicker is extremely unreliable. They have Zane Gonzalez, who missed a lot of, field goals last year, and then we missed one this year to win the game. So I think that's, you can't have that unreliableness. Saints kicker, Will Lutz, very reliable, completely opposite, has a great leg, really learned how to kick. And I think he's going to be really good for us, and I think he's better than Zane Gonzalez. Our punter, Thomas Morris, is much better than Colquitt here, so I think that's, we win a punter as well. Kick return, I feel like maybe they have a little of an edge with Antonio Callaway and Jabril Peppers over Tommy Lee Lewis. But, I think overall we're going to get the special teams victory, especially the way our special teams unit plays with the Gunners and everything, with Justin Hardy, Arthur Mullette, and Chris Banjo. So I feel like, you look at, our Gunners compared to theirs, ours are just much better. We just have a lot more depth. Our players are just, because we have all the depth and they're coming in, going 0-16, they're just not going to have that depth that we have. So I feel like that just looks at the Gunners and that stuff. Usually young guys are better than that, but I feel like our special teams is money. It's actually one of the best in the league. So I feel like our special teams is better there. So that brings us to our final tally. And, the Saints have won 5-2. I feel like, just looking at it, I feel like our team, it was very close. A lot of categories were very close, but I feel like we just pulled away. And I think that's what, we're kind of going to do in this game. So I'm going to put the score. I'm going to say the Saints win 31-27, 31-24 in that range. I feel like we'll win probably by around a touchdown, maybe a little less. I feel like the defense will come around, have a better game. Not amazing, but I think they'll play better. The offense will be, I feel like, very, very good, top-notch, more than 30 points. And we should be able to get the win here. I feel like, look, we don't want to lose this game for two reasons. One, the embarrassment of losing to a team that hasn't won a road game in 2 years in the Dome, where we're supposed to have dome field advantage, one of the best home, fields in the league. And then two, we need this win. We need a home win here coming into us now after this. Hard schedule starts. You're looking at it. The Falcons, who, I think maybe will be a little easier component than coming into the season, are still hard. Same with the Giants, who look, they look pretty strong. They stuck with Jacksonville, so kudos to them. And then, we play the Redskins, who, look, they're not, they're underrated as well. So I feel like, coming in, I feel like this is a must-win, and we're going to have to win it. So with all that said, I think it's time to get onto the Who Dat Nation fan questions. So we had one question from Saints fan from NY, and he asked, do we play Craig Robinson more versus Cleveland in our next game? So look, Craig Robertson, who, look, he's a veteran linebacker. He does a lot of great stuff, but the one knock on him is that he's slow. And you just look at it, and, he definitely, he's not that fast. Look at, he got burned by McCaffrey in the playoff game last year when we played the Panthers. He's just not that fast. He's not that athletic, but he plays extremely hard. And I think the way our defense played last week and just coming into this week, I think we need a player that plays hard and will give you maybe not the best performance, but they will give you a solid performance playing their 150%. And I think that's why he should get some snaps. Maybe he doesn't start. Maybe he will to wake up this defense. I could definitely see that too. But even if he doesn't start, but he plays, at least 25 snaps or whatever it is. Maybe even less, whatever it is. Maybe more. But he's got to play. I feel like you just need that player that gives consistent effort and over-the-top effort, after the play effort. And that's what he gives. And that's what he brings. And I think that you kind of need that player here. Just even look at his stats. Number one, he's playing his former team, so he's going to have extra, confidence there, extra, will to win, extra will to play, extra, just a little juice in there. It's all players do when they play their old teams. His best year was with the Saints when he had 115 tackles. Last year, he had 80 tackles. He gets 2 sacks last year, too. He gets a lot of forced fumbles, so you just look at that, he's pretty good. He also got 2 picks last year as well. He's a solid player. He may not, blow up the stats sheet. He may not blow up, the combine or anything, but he's a solid player. He plays extremely hard, and I think the way our defense played last week, we kind of just need a guy that does that. Maybe not even for the full game, but just for a little bit. I think, I would have put him in last week when we were not doing well, because at least he would have gave us a little stability there. Not these young guys who, they're kind of boomer bust, like Alexander Zalone, kind of a boomer bust player. I feel like he's more stability player. That's what I would have brought in Robinson when things went bad, but they decided not to. I think you'd bring him in as a confidence booster for this team. Maybe he helps get some stops, and that helps the other linebackers too, because he's such a team player. I think he'd be fine with playing any sort of time, especially after last week when he played 0 snaps. So with all that said, I think it's time to wrap up this podcast. So, as I said earlier in the episode, if you like this podcast and haven't followed us already, please follow us on Twitter at the WhoDatDis, on Instagram at WhoDatDiscussion, on Podomatic at the WhoDatDiscussion, and then, please subscribe to us on, iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube, whatever way you like watching our podcast or listening to our podcast. Please just, subscribe, leave a comment, with questions and stuff like that. Also, please leave a review on, iTunes. It's really helpful for us to get feedback and help expand the podcast. So I feel like, it's just really, big for us to just, to get reviews, get that stuff just for all this kind of stuff. Also, if you want to send a question, I haven't said this in a while, if you want to send a question to be answered on the show about the games, about some Saints news, about some upcoming previews, you could do that. First, you could do that on any comments, on any sections we are. So, Podomatic, if you want to send us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff, you can leave your questions there. And also, you can email us at the WhoDatDiscussion@gmail.com if you want your questions to be answered there. So I think that's just, it's really cool. So that fans have been actually sending in questions. We've gotten some great questions by all the fans. So, just from, thanks today to Saints fan from New York, all those questions are helpful. I love answering your questions. As I say this on every episode, I just love, interacting with the fans, interacting with, all the Who Dat Nation. It's just, I love doing it. It's great. Making this podcast has been great, so, it's just went by so quick. It's already going to be, we've already done this for 2 months now, 3 months now, you're just looking at that. It's, it's been a very, very fun ride. So, with all that said, I just want to hope the Saints get the win on Sunday. You could follow us on Twitter. We're going to give, as we do every game, we give every drive, we have a summary of the drive, what happened, scoring drives usually happens on, or it's a very, very bad drive. We'll also do a summary on there too, or an interesting drive. Usually we'll do that for defense and offense. We'll give, updates, halftime, 2-minute warnings if it's a, very close game during the 2-minute warning and stuff like that. And then our, quick recap at the end of the game that kind of sums everything up. If you haven't seen the game, you just want a very quick recap, you're scrolling through. I feel like that's a very concise way of doing it. So let's just hope for the Saints win again. I think it's a big win for us. As I said, if we get this win, I think that kind of puts us back on track. Especially, I predict us to win 31-27. But if we blow them out, I think that'd be really good for the the people who are worried about this team. I think having a nice win would be very big for us. It's a home game. We got to win this one, so it's a must win. So with all that said, I want to say thank you, prove them right, and Who Dat.